Three, two, one, and we are live. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Vinny Costa, your host of RodCAST. I'm joined today by Greg Acosta, my co-host, and Brian Petty is our guest today. I'm really excited to talk to him. I want to jump right into it because we got a lot to discuss today. For those of you who don't know, Brian is the host of Horsepower Wars, many shows under that umbrella. And we're joined with him today because the season 2 finale of Horsepower Wars 10K Drag Shootout just aired. And so we got a lot to talk about. Brian, thank you so much for being here, man.
Hey, no, thank you guys for having me on. I've been, ever since you put the invite forward, I've been really excited to, catch up with you guys, obviously, because we're friends, but then also,
yeah, definitely, man. Every time,
we're losing the Vinster.
Losing the Vinny.
But, all right, well.
I heard every time. And then it trickled out.
Well, the reason we wanted to have you on the show is because obviously 10K Shootout has been probably the biggest property. Would that be fair to say, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we were coming out with all these other cool shows, Junkyard Challenge and Pony Wars and all this stuff, and then all we're getting in half the comments are, where is 10K? And it's like, oh, come on, guys. Like, we have more than one show. Like, when we post 10K stuff, post there. Like, why are you mucking all this up? But yeah, no, 10K has definitely been extremely popular. Lots of viewers, lots of fans. It's been, I've been so overwhelmed and just like really happy about the viewership. And like, I just thank anybody that watches it, that has watched it a second, 10 minutes, all the episodes. Thank you a ton. It's been really awesome. So,
Brian, that brings up a series of questions that I wanted to ask you. We're kind of jumping ahead. I was going to wait until I asked to ask these later, but this is the first interview that we've done where I have multiple questions, so many that I had to write them down. And I guess I'll start from the top, man, because we get an inside look with you and your personal experiences. How going from, I guess I'll start at the beginning. When you came on to Power Auto Media, did anybody tell you that you were going to be like hosting all these shows? You're going to be the face of, LS versus Coyote, 10K. You're going to be doing talent work on all those, Pony Wars as well. Is that something that you knew coming in?
No, not really. I knew that I was being hired for mainly writing, and then hey, like when we need talent, you would step in and fill that role. And I was like, okay, like cool, like I have broadcasting background, I've been in front of the camera, I can write, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. But in reality, it kind of happened after the interviews had been done. I had accepted the job offer, and then James comes up, and, hey, so like we got this new show, and I want you to host it. And I'm like, okay, cool, awesome, thank you. Like, it put a lot of stress on me. I was very flattered because it's okay, like this is a big deal, like a whole new show, and like, oh hey, I know you're brand new, but like let's just jump right into this. And it's like, word, let's do it. So that, it kind of went down like that, and then as it progressed, it's like, oh hey, you did such a good job with 10K. Like, how about LS versus Coyote? How about Pony Wars? How about this? How about that? It's like, bring it on, I guess. Like, sure, I enjoy it, so it's a good time.
That's awesome, man. And I know, correct me if I'm wrong. So season 1, you did LS versus Coyote and 10K. And then season 2, you did 10K Pony Wars. And you also did some script work on Junkyard Challenge. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And I actually did Pony Wars first season, and I did Pony Wars second season as well.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because there was one season before LS versus Coyote, right? Or do I have my timeline wrong?
Yes. LS versus Coyote, they did, Horsepower Wars did kind of a naturally aspirated Coyote versus a naturally aspirated LS. Similar rules, limited budget. They have to be naturally aspirated. You can only use X parts, whatever. And that was a while back, and it got, 1.5 million, 2 million views per video. And then it's like, well, maybe we should revisit this. And like to today, as far as like per video, season 2 of LS versus Coyote has done better than like anything else as far as just raw views, which is really cool. And it's a great watch. Like, if you haven't seen LS vs. Coyote and you love to like know about
it is,
the internal, how we did stuff. It was really like I really enjoyed that. It was a good time.
Well,
For sure.
I mean, you have two really passionate groups of people that you're catering to, the Coyote crowd and the LS crowd. So that's as big as it gets. And then you guys doubled down and went, with Pony Wars, and you included people who were into late model Mopar as well, which is really cool. But
Yeah, that is exactly. Yep.
hey, I'm curious, man. Starting out with like season one, you were doing a little bit of talent work, and then you expounded on that with 10K, and then rolled into season two. How have you personally? How have you changed from the beginning, and what has been the biggest impact on you?
The biggest impact on me, honestly, is just going from like I don't have a huge like social media following. I don't have this kind of stuff, because I came from news, right? Like I was into broadcast news, and I just hated it. And I'm like, dude, cars are where it's at. Like broadcast news is so hard to get a story about cars. And so anyway, this all kind of came up, and like I dove right in. Like I was flattered, like I said, that you guys gave me the opportunity. I dove in, and it's changed a lot because like season one, like I was still fairly green. I hadn't ever hosted like a big show like this. I'd hosted other things, but like this is like a show is something completely different. And I definitely learned a lot. And I really feel, and talking to other people, like, the production crew, the teams, just random people at PRI or SEMA or wherever, even just friends and family, they're like, dude, like, you gotta, like, I don't take anything away from season one, but like, you got a lot better on season two. And I was like, okay, thank you. Like, that is exactly what I was trying to do because, like learn from my mistakes, clean it up, take some more time studying, all of the material we're going over, the cars, studying the teams, like just studying the teams for days, right? And making sure I learn all of them and everything. So I was definitely happy that people noticed that there was a change in how I did it.
That's
So,
awesome,
yeah, that was.
man. It's like you probably like people who watch at home probably wouldn't notice the improve like the big improvement. I mean, they might because they mentioned it to you, but we are our own worst critics, right? So like I'm sure like you watch stuff from season one, you're like, oh, why did I say that? Or oh, why did I do it like that? Because I'm the same way. But that brings me into my next question. Like you mentioned that you personally got better, but are you getting recognized now? Like now that you've done these, multiple shows for a couple seasons, like when you're out and about, do people come up to you?
That really caught me off guard. That like, I mean, it's mostly at like the like PRI and SEMA and like being on the production set like at South Georgia Motorsports Park or wherever, like running up to people and like selfies with me, and I'm like, sure, like what? Like this is totally like I was so like just so it really humbled me because I never thought in my wildest dreams, and I mean, there's not like a million people that like, oh man, Brian Petty's hotter than Chris Hemsworth, which I mean, I agree with that, but
Yeah, that's for the
just
people to say.
yeah, and talking to those people and having the fans like autographs, that was something unreal at South Georgia. Signing autographs and selfies. I was so not prepared, and just the whole fan thing just completely took me off guard. And I was so grateful for all those people. I'm so glad they love the show. I'm just the tiniest cog, and I really appreciate everybody and what they do.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. I'm so glad to hear that you're having a good time with it. I know that like before anything, you were an enthusiast. Like you've been racing for a long time and you've been on some race teams, and then that kind of transitioned into your role here after, getting some broadcast experience. So it's got to be surreal. I can only imagine. But that's really cool that you get recognized. I have a couple more questions on your personal experience though. So out of all the shows that you've worked on, out of all the shows that you've watched, how do you rank them? Like if you were a fan, and then which ones were your favorite to work on?
As a fan, 10K, hands down. There's the viewership and the fans and just like the overall reality TV show. That's up here. You know what I mean? Pony Wars was a lot of fun too, but I have to say second for me, just being such a hardcore car guy and a racer, LS vs. Coyote was so enlightening and cool. I mean, I got to see every single bolt every single bearing, every single belt, and all these things come together in these two different engines. And we worked with two really, really awesome builders that make high horsepower stuff day in and day out. And it's like, oh yeah, like 2,000 horsepower is like falling off a log, and it's like, it is. 500 horsepower is like falling off a log, and so that I have to actually, like, me personally as an enthusiast and like a very hardcore car guy, I would have to say Ellis vs. Coyote is probably my second. Pony Wars was super cool working with Mike. It's a very, like, between that and Ellis vs. Coyote, it's super close because working with Mike at Arrington, that was surreal.
He's such a cool guy. Cool.
He is a way cool guy, and so that's how I would rank them for sure.
That's awesome, man. I'm jumping back here right now, but I'm curious. You mentioned, it's reality and stuff, but what was it like? What was your life like filming season 1, and then what was it like filming season 2? Was it a lot different? Was it like a lot of the same? What was your day-to-day like when you guys are filming?
You could not get more different between season 1 and season 2 in what I was responsible for, and we quickly figured out, James and Dimitri and Scott, like everybody, the whole production crew, they're like, oh man, like season 1, it's like Brian is like out of breath and just so stressed out all the time. And we were pulling 22-hour days like consistently, and because I was the rules guy, I was the concierge.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Everything rules and parts, what is it, like the approvals, all the used parts. I was the writer. I was the host. I was like the technical, like, hey, let me explain this to the viewers, to like make the super technical, not so technical. I was wearing 1,000 hats, and that's why that's one of the big reasons my hosting suffered a little bit, because I had my head and my brain going 100 different directions. In season 2, no more, like I came in like as a, what'd you call it, as like an advisor to the parts approvals and like the pricing and that kind of stuff. But I didn't have like a huge say. It's just like, hey, we need a tiebreaker on this. Half of the parts approval team is saying it's worth this. Half the parts, guys are saying this, and then I would like break the tie, and that's pretty much where I was at. And as far as that was very limited, and it made my day a lot easier, and I could focus on doing the talent work and focus on hosting and getting to know the teams and understanding the vehicles.
That's
well,
cool.
and besides the workload thing, I would think that having to maybe hand down decisions that aren't exactly favorable could hurt your hosting ability, because now you got to go talk to them, but they're mad at you because you just disallowed their part or took away their budget.
Yeah. What was that like, Brian? I'm sure you've run into that a couple times.
It sucked. Flat out, it sucked. It only happened a handful of times, like 2 or 3 most, but there was one with Team Bodie, and dude, like they just ripped into me, right? They're like, dude, this X part is just not worth what you're charging us. And I'm like, dude, nobody understands how many things I buy. I just bought a 5.3 block before this podcast, like within the half hour, literally. It's like, dude, I know what parts go for, whether it's a freaking twin turbo 41X car or a Pro Charge Street Corvette, whatever, you know what I mean? And so like to have my things second guessed by like these builders, it's like, dude, go and find me 10 more of the same part for the same price, and I'll give it to you for that price. Guess what? They couldn't. But like it just created tension, Yeah.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Brian Petty, he ain't on that BS. He'll call you on it. But hey, man. So that brings me to like the minutia of season 2. The reason that we're here, right? The finale just aired. So if you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. Check it out on Power Auto Media's YouTube. You can also see it on horsepowerwars.com. It's amazing, dude. It's probably I would rank it up there, probably best show that we've done so far. Like it was really intense. There was a lot of drama going on, but I'm curious, Brian, I want to get your take on it. And, I'm sure a lot of people at home have the same question. I mean, it's reality TV and you are a script writer. How much of that drama was real and how much was fabricated or whatever?
So when you see the actual audio from the teams and the members and they're yelling and they're clearly frustrated, 100% real. And most of the time we couldn't give the dedicated time it needed to show the entire scene and like what all happened. Because you got these guys that are super frustrated about what's happening, whatever, there's drama, they're getting pissed at other team members. Like it's funny because the fight on episode 7 between Dave and Lyle, dude, we had to. It was 100%. Like all of a sudden it happened. And I'm sitting there on the fender of the Mustang, and I'm like, this shit's going down, dude. Like, what the? How this happening? Like, out of nowhere. And so, honestly, 100% of it happened. Sometimes we have to use, some video techniques to like bring the drama to where it really is, because like we can't get the audio from the guys because it's in the moment, it's raw, it's in your face, and we can't get, hey, can you say that again while you're fighting? Like, so really that's the only fabrication we do. But as far as like all of these conflicts and drama and like the time running out, dude, the time's always running out. That's the whole deal. It's a $10,000 build, and you're trying to go mid fives, bottom fives in the eighth, and you're trying to go bottom eights in the quarter, and you have 10 days to build the car, and then you have 3 qualifying runs. That's just like, there's gonna be drama and havoc and a lot of broken stuff, as you saw.
Well, we can get to the specific drama here in a minute. I guess we should start with the most dramatic, well, one of the most dramatic things that happened this season. And this was like, I don't know how anybody could assume that it was like staged or fake. And that was the fire, dude. How did you react when you found out about it? What were your first thoughts? And then how did you guys come up with a solution?
That ruined my month, to be completely honest. When that happened and I found out, I don't know. It's really hard to express how bad that was. That really was, because I mean, somehow by the grace of heavens above, we were able to come out of it. But in reality, when that happened, I thought, this is it. Like, the cars got burned up. That's it. Like, how are we going to make a show out of this? In the moment. And then working with the production team and talking and having meetings and 1,000 phone calls and proposing different ideas and how it went down. Luckily, we had sponsors that stepped up. Like, I know that people hate the sponsor crap, but it's like, dude, without sponsors, show wouldn't exist. So I don't know how else you want us to figure this out, especially when we're already out $40,000 in these 4 cars, and then we got to go out another 20,000 in these 2 cars. Like, that's the way it works. And so I really thank the sponsors for stepping up, because that was huge. Like Summit, dude, I can't say enough good about Summit. Like, oh yeah, like here's budget, fix the cars. Oh hey, yeah, and bring them here to our facility and fly them out, and and do all this stuff. And it just was so surreal in that moment, but at the same time, when the fire actually happened, I was devastated, to say the least.
Yeah, man, it's to your point, a lot of people in the comments are like, oh, well, the cars are insured, they'll be fine or whatever. And it's like, okay, that remains to be seen, but it's going to take some time. We're still in the middle of filming a show. Like, that phone call to the insurance company or whatever doesn't happen overnight. So it's like, okay, we're left holding the bag, and we still got to finish this show. So to your point, yeah, that's awesome that the sponsors stepped up and were able to accommodate you guys.
I mean, and one thing too that I think a lot of people don't realize is it has nothing to do with money. I mean, a lot of those emotions, I know they're cars, they're inanimate objects, but they're not. They have souls. They have places in our hearts. I mean,
dude, you spend 10 days thrashing on something, building it. Come on.
Like, no sponsor in the world can fix that. I mean, they can try, you can get close, but that's gone. So it's gone.
I definitely had multiple very emotional, points. And like in the show, like when I'm in the hotel room and like that, like, dude, I'm thinking about everything that's going down. And like, I really was struggling. And then like that social short that I did, where I literally like I was having trouble controlling my emotions, to say the least. And like, that was 100% real, because it's like, dude, this is, and I think I brought it up in the episode where I'm like, I didn't even build these cars, and I'm emotionally attached. Like, I can't even imagine how these teams feel. Like, that's just, yeah.
What were you feeling? Like, were you mainly like sad or upset for the teams and the builds, or were you mad at like maybe the transportation company or something like that?
Helpless.
Mm.
I felt completely helpless, because I can't fix this overnight. Nobody can fix it overnight. And how the hell do we move forward? That was my thought in that moment. Like, how is this going to even happen? Is the show done? those were my thoughts in that moment.
Well, luckily the show went on, man. But that wasn't like the only piece of drama that happened. I mean, that was huge. That was epic. And then luckily we were able to find a way around that. But something else, and you don't have to comment on this if you don't want to, Brian. Something else major that happened this season was Mr. Hunt's passing. Were you close with him? Did you know him intimately? How did that make you feel? And can you just explain your feelings going into that?
So yeah, no, I don't have any problem, talking about it. This is Joe Hunt's, like memorial shirt. I wouldn't say that I was super close to Joe, but before the $10,000 drag shot, I had never met him. But in those, 2 weeks and in the weeks following, I would consider him a good friend. You know what I mean? Like, we're not best friends. I haven't known him for 10 years, but I would talk to him all the time. I would shoot him texts, I'd shoot him messenger, talk to him, be like, hey, I got this question about this, or hey, like, I know that you guys did this. Why did you do that? Just because I was just for my own personal curiosity. I wasn't writing an article or nothing. And he was always very cordial and sincere, talking to me, respond. And then I asked him a question, a while later, and then I never got a response. And then very shortly after that, like, it was the accident happened. And that night, I really had a rough night. Like, it was a rough night. Like, one of those where, like, you go to the bar, you close the bar down, you just want to think and sit and ponder and, like, not stew on it, but, like, take it in and I don't know, deal with it as best you can, because he was a really cool guy. He was always very nice to me, and it was tough. It was tough, to say the least.
Yeah, man, I can only imagine, even for people who didn't know him, but are racers, like that's a fellow racer. That's a horrible accident. And so you're emotionally invested in that way. You share something like common ground with him. And then for you to have worked closely with him, you have to feel that exponentially. And we're all sorry for his loss, but at least we can remember him vividly on the show, which is more than we can say for a lot of people.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. I agree 100%.
Yeah. But moving on from that, how was it? How did the team react when you started working with them again? Was it really? Did you notice them having a difficult time when they came back?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I mean, difficult in like an emotional sense, as far as like a mechanical and racing sense, not so much. But you could. I mean, it was clear as day they had lost that vigor. They had lost that. Trying to think of a word that explains it, but like they had lost a lot of their passion for this whole thing. And
yeah, it's safe to say that maybe he was like the driving force behind that team.
Yeah, and definitely Joe and Joey and like the whole team works extremely well together, extremely well. And just the fact that the leader of the team that like got this whole thing going, submitted the application, talked to this team or whatever, and like for that to happen, yeah, like they had definitely lost a lot of their enthusiasm and their just their will to move forward with it, because it's like, man, we lost our leader, like it was a big deal, but they moved forward. And yeah, we can go into the logistics later of like my opinion on which car and which engine and which do I like, this, that. We can talk about that later. But I think they did the best they could.
Well, dude, I mean, any of these cars, taking a step back and just looking at the feat of building them in that short time frame and then racing them, that's impressive. But to come back from something like that and finish building your car and then making these hits, it's just even more impressive. And so kudos to those guys, man. And, they have our love for sure. One other question that I have for you, Brian, is, Greg and I were talking earlier, and speaking of a team's cohesiveness, why did it seem like the dream team had trouble with like motivation, like throughout the show? It seemed like they were always late, or maybe it was difficult for them to work together. What was going on there?
So no matter how you cut it, first year, second year, they all have the same problem. There are a lot of different guys coming from a lot of different walks of life, and you're trying to make a team out of it. That's going to be an inherent disadvantage every single time without fail. It's going to happen. And this year, you had that going on, of course, but then you also had personalities that were clashing a little bit. Don, a very energetic, very enthusiastic guy, but like clashed quite a bit, and like it made some conflicts with the other teams, like through a competition, right? And it is neither here nor there. I don't judge him for it, but it's like, dude, like you kind of screwed your team right there. Like you could have gotten a free converter, you could have gotten a free flex, but you could have gotten a free starter and all this other stuff, and that could have saved you $1,000. And that car was the worst for budget. Like they were so over budget, it was stupid. And yeah, and going from that to like Keith trying to get motivated with the car to drive it. I mean, dude, there was talks, like no one knows this, or it's very like on the DL. There were talks about Keith not even driving the car. Like 100% he was out. And Jesse's like, I'm going to have to step up and drive. And
Wow.
Jesse could drive. Like, dude, like that would have been another huge paradigm shift. Like, okay, we got this driver. We're just shifting over to Jesse now. So,
Well, Greg actually posed that same question, and he's more knowledgeable about this stuff than I am. But yeah, Greg, weren't you just asking me about like Keith being open about all that?
Yeah, it was very surprising because I mean, I was working for Pro Media when Keith won his back-to-back-to-back championships. He's, ostensibly this badass, outgoing, just champion. And then he gets on this and he flat out just admits, I'm scared to drive. Like, where did that come from? Like he didn't hold anything back. Like, that blows me away. Where did that come from?
Yeah. Did he mention that it was because of the stage that we were on, because this was being broadcast? Did he ever talk to you about it, Brian?
yeah, he did. And it wasn't really that. It was more just and in the show we covered it briefly, and I could see how a lot of people could miss it, but it really came down to just a safety thing. Because, like, dude, no matter what happens, you're going. Because I mean, when he won his back-to-back, I mean, it was right when radials were like in that bottom 4-second range, and it was shattering the earth. And like every year, radial RVW shatters the earth, but it was right at that point where it's like, dude, you wreck at these speeds, you could be dead. Like, and it came down to his family, and like he said in his interview, he's like, I'm worried that they will be worried. I'm worried if something happens to me, what will happen to them. That's really what it boiled down to.
As someone who's spent some time behind the wheel of some rickety kind of vehicles, do you think his trepidation was justified?
I think so in this instance, just because he is used to having a ready, prepped, $500,000 RVW car that has more runs on it than you can count, more seat time, very familiar with his team, with how everything works, and going from that to this $10,000, pardon my French, piece of shit, and trying to make it work with limited runs, no time, and that, yeah, and definitely, I think it was warranted for sure.
So, Brian, you touched on something a moment ago that I want to expound upon, and you were talking about the cohesion of the Dream Team, but this is a more broad question for all the teams that you've seen. What mistakes have you seen teams make past and in this season as well? And do you see them carrying over? Like, do you see them learning from the previous season as far as like budgets? Did teams come in season 2 more prepared? What was that like?
So to start off, I'll say I believe second season, even though the ETs weren't, quite as fast as the teams were expecting, I believe that the competition in general was just more. There was more competition and there was a more even spread between all the teams as far as like competitors wise. Like last year, Dean and Stinky Pinky team and that third gen Camaro blew my mind when they never qualified. Like that melted my brain and it was oozing out of my ears in the staging lanes because like no one thought a roots blower on gas, yeah, that's gonna work real well. So I thought that was a massive mistake, but it turned out that I was 100% wrong. And kudos to Dean and his team. But the other one was Team Bodie. They had by far the most power potential, but because of how they did the rear end and because of how limited they were on the budget, which if you're going to build a big block of any kind on this budget, you are going to have to cut a ton of corners. And it just so happened they cut the corners that was ultimately the demise of the entire build, even though the engine was clearly making power, but they just couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah, man. I was surprised by some of their choices too. I will say I was very excited to hear that, like, okay, they're not just going LS too. Everybody wants to go LS, but yeah, I was excited, especially when I heard the words big block. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in. I know who I'm rooting for. So that was really cool. What were the biggest surprises this season as far as build choices?
I was not really surprised with any of the build choices, because just knowing Biggin and talking to those guys and being in contact with them as much as I have been, I had a very strong feeling they were not going to do another LS Turbo. And they made it very, very clear early on in our conversations. They're like, yeah, LS Turbo's the way to go, but like we just don't want to do the same thing again, and we don't want it to be the $10,000 LS Turbo drag shootout. You know what I mean? Because that's almost what it was. And the next thing, I was really surprised at how many variations of the LS there were. Every single one was different. One was a 4.8, one was a 5.3, one was a 6-liter, and I did not see that coming at all.
That was pretty cool, yeah.
Well, and not only that, but different levels of preparation. You had like Midwest Mayhem, who was like, screw it, we're going as stock as we can. And then you got like Enemies Everywhere, and they're, building, what was it, an LQ4 block and stuff. I mean, like, they went into it, and then you got Dream Team, who's putting concrete in. Everybody did it different. The only reason I know all that is because I wrote all their profiles.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I remember saying to Scott Parker something about Enemies Everywhere, and I was like, something about their engine build just stands out to me. And he kind of just went, I don't know. And look at what happened. I just think there was something about their build that stood out.
It's so weird how they're all so different but similar at the same time, sharing the engine family, but sort of kind of, and then like to your point, Brian, how they were all built differently. I don't want to jump the gun here, but based on those decisions made, Brian, are you surprised who won?
Not based on the decisions that were made. Well, actually, like the decisions made by the teams.
Yeah, like just their build decisions, like how they went about building each car. Were you surprised which car won?
Did not surprise me in the least. I have built Cathedral Port, supercharged, nitrous, turbo, LS combinations. I've got a supercharged nitrous combination LS right here, rectangle port. DTSV. And I don't know if we'll talk about that later, but
yeah, for sure.
It taught me so much about how potent those rectangle port cylinder heads are. And reading all these articles, it's clear as day a rectangle, and I don't give a crap how much shit I get on the internet for this. The rectangle port cylinder head is better than a cathedral port cylinder head. Prove me wrong.
Whoa, Greg.
No, he's not wrong.
I tag you in. You in.
100% not wrong. You want to fight about it? There are people who are going to want to fight about it, and the fact is,
absolutely. Yes.
You can build a test to make them look equal, but the fact is, a rectangular port cylinder head will always beat a cathedral port as long as it's built properly.
Not to go deep into a tangent on engine building, but is it just because of
there? You might as well
is it just because of flow characteristics or like the turbulence that the cathedral port creates?
Flow.
What's going on? Okay,
it's flow. They're bigger heads.
It's the geometry of the head and the efficiency of the head. That's all it comes down to, and that's the reason you have to have at least a 6-liter, 4-inch bore to be able to fit that cylinder head, because the valve is a lot bigger than any cathedral port valve is. So,
yeah. Well, a perfect example is that thing that Richard Holdner just did. We posted on Engine Labs last week.
Yes.
Yes. Because he didn't, even though he didn't account for that 10cc difference, it still made the same power. You give it the compression ratio back, there's no chance. But that right there was proof positive. And he even admits in his video, he's like, I did not give these rectangle ports a fair shake. I just had them and I was bored and I had dyno time, so I did it.
So is it so Brian, when you say like, oh, I'm going to catch hell in the comments for saying this, is it because is it like a Chevy versus Ford thing where there's just, fanboys, or is it because they're more prevalent, more people own cathedral port? Why do you say that?
I think that's part of it for sure. There's definitely, a lot more cathedral port than rectangle port out there. The cathedral port is just flat out cheaper to build. I mean, we were talking stock cylinder head. And that's one thing that the Aussies ran into because in Australia, apparently, the rectangle port is more common than cathedral port. And so the heads are actually super, it's like a swap. So cathedral port cylinder heads here, dude, stock ones, dude, if you spend $100, you're high. Like they're worth nothing. Like they're freaking boat anchor. But here, rectangle port LS3 heads, like they go to $400 or $500 in completely stock form as long as they're not damaged. And I think it's number one, it's a cost thing, but number two, there's people that just, oh no, cathedral is the way to go, and it's like, yeah, it's probably because you have a ton of experience with cathedral and none with rectangle because you've had such good experience with cathedral. You're not even willing to test rectangle because it's more expensive, and how could it be better than this? That's that's my personal.
All right, Greg, resident engine guru. Do you fall in line?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I do have an LS project that I want to work on. Basically putting them onto a small bore because is it Mass Motorsports that came out with a small bore rectangle port? I really want to do this, and because we did it follow up to the first LS versus Coyote where I did everything in software and simulated everything. But I really want to do it for real. It's just real hard when all of a sudden, I want to build a $10,000 engine just to prove a point. It's a little bit difficult.
I'm right there. I'm right there with you. When they came out with the, they went from a 216 valve intake valve to a 212 intake valve so that it would fit. You know what I mean? And going smaller, but going to the rectangle port, it's just so much. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff we could talk about it forever, but definitely agree.
Brian, I want to get back to the show. The finale just aired on Tuesday. People, again, go out and watch it. horsepowerwars.com, Power Auto Media YouTube. But Brian, walk us through filming episode or the season finale rather. Like from the beginning, all the drama that ensued, and then there was something crazy that happened at the end. The whole burn down situation. Walk us through what that was like. Yeah. And spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen it.
Yeah. Okay. First off, I see Jenna posting. Don't talk about my car like it's an old man's car. That's offensive. Anyway, I just had to address Jenna. So starting at at the beginning and working through. Obviously, the beginning, we had to spruce it up a little bit and with editing and stuff because it's like, okay, teams are getting here, they're picking up their cars and they're going to the track, and it's like, we need to address and talk about all the things that have happened because there's a lot of people that didn't see the social short that I put out when the cars burned up. And at the end of episode 7, it was a quick little blip. And it was just a blip on the radar and people missed it. I had so many friends and family like, dude, somebody told me the cars burned up? How and when? It's like, did you watch episode 7? Yeah, I watched it. It's right there, dude. Like right there at the end. I mean, I can see how stuff can get missed. You know what I mean? People are watching, while they're cleaning or whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway, getting all that, in a concise, smooth form so that people could, see, hey, this is what's happened. Just want to let you guys all know, these are the engines that were built in case, you need to be refreshed. The car's got in a fire, a team leader passed away. And, working through, just getting all that together in a concise form that was smooth definitely took some time. And, talking to the teams like, hey, what's your plan moving forward? And it's like, hey, we're coming here to win. Every single team's like, we're not here to freaking just throw in the towel and lose. And just get the competition set. And, like I said, it's exactly how it happened. Just the way we cut it, to make it a little more higher energy is definitely something that happens in all post-production. So we travel to the track, we get there, and the teams start working. And the number one thing was, it's like, dude, Midwest, it's just like I said in the video, everything I'm going to say is kind of a little bit of a repetition, but just to, give a little bit of clarification. Midwest Mayhem was race ready. Just like they said, just like I said, it's like, dude, they're ready. They're just chilling. They're cool. They're just cooling off. They were done 2 days early, and they used the last 2 days to just test their bump box and test their, trans brake and all, little things that none of the other teams had ever tested because it's like, dude, their cars weren't even done. And so, really, the Dream Team and Enemies Everywhere, dude, they were struggling. I was really, really worried about Enemies Everywhere from the get-go because it's like, dude, they're rewiring their entire car. Their map sensor is not reading right. Their TPS is calibrated backward, and somehow it's not getting signal. Their intake air temp with the original factory harness never worked. Their intake, their I-18 never worked. And that's a massive problem when you got to boost a car with high temps. So lots of wiring problems from the get-go, and then the fire just messed it up worse. And so rewiring the whole car in the pits, I think
real quick, Brian, I got to ask you. The shot where they throw the entire harness in the trash can, okay? That about gave me a panic attack.
Oh, yeah.
Was that real? Did they go fishing it out afterwards to reuse it, or was that legit?
No. He was done. Jamie's like, dude, we have fought, because it comes back to the whole thing of like the intake air temp not working, all these things not working because the wiring, junk. He threw it away, and I'm like, are they going to make it to eliminations at all? That's what I thought.
Well, dude, so that I had the same thought, different direction, but as soon as he threw that in the trash, I was like thinking to myself, like, I don't know how much time they had on the rebuild that they could have dedicated to that, but I just kept thinking, like, if there was fire damage, that would have been the first thing that I would have thought to replace. What was up with that?
So, enemies everywhere. Jamie was the only one that flew out for the rebuild, and it was just because upon initial inspection, it was just cosmetic damage, and it was just wiring to like the taillights that was burned up. But it's like, oh no, there's a lot of wires back there. You know what I mean? And it just so happened whether they pushed the brake pedal and short the ground, fried it all the way up, or whatever, it fried the entire. It really messed up the entire harness going all the way up. And it was just Jamie. He just came out to do cosmetic repairs, and that's it. He didn't come out to rebuild a transmission. He didn't come out to fix wiring. And no, it was just like, hey, let's fix this. Oh yeah, I found a Camaro. Let's just pull the body parts off. It's easy. It's the easiest way. It's the same color. And that was it. So that's the reason it wasn't addressed in the rebuild, because enemies, the whole team wasn't there. It was just Jamie. And he was just, okay, we can fix everything. Let's just get the body fixed.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you, because that was like the one glaring thing that kind of stood out to me. I was like, is that real? Because like, why wouldn't they have fixed it before? But that makes sense.
100% happy. And I was blown away.
So going on from that, then what happened?
Okay, so first round of qualifying. We'll just take it right to there, right? I mean, the whole thing, like the storms were clear as day happening that day. Like there was no doubt, 100% chance, and everybody talked to that's been to that race, or any race in South Georgia for that matter, it's like, oh, you will be rained out at least one day every single freaking time without fail. It's like, okay. So we're there, we're in the staging lanes, and it sucks we didn't get to show it because we just didn't have time, and it wasn't a huge deal afterward, but it literally started raining on us on Midwest Mayhem's car and on Biggin's car in the staging lanes. It started raining. And somehow, like, heavens above just reached down and be like, just clear this out and let them run. And it literally stopped, cleared up, it wasn't a lot of rain, and then we got to run, and then instantly we got that boom, it just starts dumping rain. Dumping, just buckets and buckets, like stupid amount of rain. Like we don't get that kind of rain here in Idaho, and yeah, it was insane. And that's the reason, like, I'm in the car and they're pushing it. Like I'm in the car talking to the camera, like this is insane. And like Dream Team's pushing their car, and Lyle's like sitting there, like I don't know what to do with my hands. All that happened like in like 3 minutes. So that was it was fun for me, but it's really tough in general because it's just dumping rain. Now the whole day was done, burned. We were gonna get like 2 more qualifying runs that day. No, didn't happen. So we go from 5 qualifying runs, which in a brand new car, I figured that's absolute bare minimum if you're an insanely good, smart team that works together. Let's just take half of them away almost. Let's just take almost half of the runs away. None of these cars are going fast in my head. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, none of these cars are going fast. They don't have any time to test. And then, the next round comes around. Enemies everywhere. They got their car rewired. They got everything fixed somehow. I don't know how they did that so quickly. And then they pull up and just bam, right off the freaking first pass, 550s, 120s traps. And I'm like, holy crap, that is fast. Like, super fast. And I saw that and I'm like, oh my gosh, finally, they're getting a break. They only won the eating competition. They won nothing else. And they popped their car from day one. Transmission, getting the engine together, wiring from day one. And they finally, it all came together. And I'm like, I don't know how anybody with a brand new combination could just go out and go 550s. Because that's deep in the 8s. 550 is like an 860 run, 850 run. And so that's flying for a very first pass ever in a bucket pile of crap car.
Yeah, well, so what do you attribute that to? Was that all driver? Or, I guess it was a combination of things, right?
Yeah, absolutely a combination of things. I think that team just really, really surprised me in those moments. They really blew me away because it's like the whole team's working together. They're rewiring the car. They're doing all this stuff. They're fixing all these things. And definitely a driver, dude. Jamie's a driver. Like, he can drive that thing. You know what I mean? And all of it came together. And I would just have to say the entire team really stepped up and just blew it out of the water. And then Midwest went 590 at 121. Q2 if I remember right, which is insanely impressive for a stock 4.8 bottom end, like
It's crazy.
at 32 or 3,300 pounds. Like that is impressive. If anybody wants to argue with me on that, bring it. You do it. You know what I mean?
Well, okay. So then how much of Enemies Everywhere's win do you think was because they just built a better car and had the better driver on that day? And how much of it was like an opportunistic win where, it's like, okay, if this hadn't happened, they might have had a tougher time winning.
And this comes back to the engine. 100%. I really believe when they started building that 6-liter, I was like, oh, these guys got it. These guys got it. They're doing it right. In my opinion, I'm not a professional, but it's like, these guys have done it right. These heads are significantly better. You have more cubic inches to displace all of this power, and it's just they do it right. And then they put a ladder bar in, and I'm like, oh, dude, done. Ladder bars are the easiest, most simplistic, rear end geometry that you can set up, in my opinion. Number one, because they're, like I said, they're simple to set up. Number two, because, dude, you can go out and instantly start making fast runs in the cars. The 4 links take a while to dial in. You're making adjustments. You're making shock adjustments. You're setting ride height. You're doing all this. And it's like, dude, the ladder bar, you just, okay, this is where it's supposed to be, go. And it always goes. I have a bunch of friends that race ladder bar cars, and they're always consistent. And that's what you need to win. They went 550s, 570s. Boom. And they won. And nobody else had back-to-back-to-back consistency like that.
Initially, I think some people were thinking that that 4th gen was going to be a disadvantage. But to your point, their suspension setup ended up making it an advantage. Was that something that you foresaw?
I foresaw the ladder bar being much quicker and easier and simpler to dial in. And I think that gave them an advantage. But the 4th gen did give them a disadvantage just because they spent so much time getting that engine into and in the middle almost of the car. Like, it's just like Nathan said. He's like, dude, this is a bloody midi mount. Like, this is a bloody mid mount almost. And it really is. Because, dude, like, that engine is up under the cow. Why? I will never know. I mean, I would
distribution?
use a 4th gen or... Yeah, I would use a 4th gen as a door wedge because they're shaped like that. But I mean, they did a really killer job. Okay, all right. The team came together, and I was really impressed with their fabrication skills. When they went to a ladder bar, I was like, oh, these guys are going to have it dialed in quicker than anybody else, period. Bar none. Like, they're going to have it dialed in quicker because it's a ladder bar. Yeah. And then the engine on top, I knew that their setup had a ton of potential. I just didn't know with all the problems they were having because they were stuck with the 4th gen. How long? Because they spent way more time fabricating those ladder bars than anybody else. Because all the other cars are 4-link, you just buy arms and bolt them in. That's all you do. You buy them and you bolt them in. So that burned a lot of time that they could have been using figuring out their wiring, figuring out the transmission, and they ended up doing it at the race and coming out on top.
Brian, let's jump ahead to the win, right? The finish of the competition. There was some controversy, right, that happened like on the track. There was some shouting like at the officials. There was craziness going on because of a watered down track, miscommunication. Can you dive into that, please?
Absolutely. And I figured a lot of people were wondering on that. Exactly how it went down is how it went down. Obviously, we had to completely compress it, right? Like, we didn't have the 10 minutes that it really took to figure all that out. But basically, in short, what happened, they pull up, the teams are running, Midwest makes a good pass, Enemies makes number 1 qualifies, makes a killer pass, and then Dream Team pulls up, and it's like, okay, like, 3rd good pass, here we go. They blow their frost plugs, scatter water from their engine all over, all the way down. You can see it. I asked them in post, I was like, hey, can you put like an arrow and point to the water so people can really physically see it? Because you can see the water go, you just have to know where to look, right? Yeah. So that gets done, and I wish that we had made a little more effort to say, hey, like, the entire track, like, maybe me, I should, like, I don't know if I did a vlog here or if I should have been like, hey, the entire track is watered down right now. Like, they got to clean all this up. Then move into all the drama, because basically the tower somehow got misinformed or they gave misinformation somehow. Miscommunication happened, and they hit up Lonnie. That's the reason Lyle's like, "Where's that dumb mother girl Lonnie? Like, where's that dumb bit?" You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I would be pissed in this situation too. So because basically the tower hit up Lonnie and said, "Hey, pull them in. We're ready to go. Run them." Dude, they're out there with torches. 100% exactly how it was in the show is exactly how it went down. The tower informed Lonnie. Lonnie was, of course, the concierge that got all the crap. And they pulled up, and it's like, dude, why are we in the burnout box? There's guys with torches drying 10 gallons of water out there. What's going on? And I will give part blame to the miscommunication, but I will also give part blame, and Lyle might get pissed at me if he ever sees this, which he probably won't, or Chad or the team. It's like, dude, you guys came to the lanes with a car that doesn't freaking start. Like, you tried bridging the batteries, you tried making a 24-volt system, tried doing all that. It didn't work. Part of the blame is on you. You should, like, a consistent car, you should be able to pull it in, start it up, it won't start, shut it off, wait, start it back up, and run. That is very common all the time. It's not a freaking RVW car with a screw blower that gets started with a freaking starter on the blower. It started with a key and a starter and a battery, and it didn't work for them. And I'm not saying that it was a flaw in their build. I'm just saying it's one of those unexpected things that happened that they didn't take into account, and they were pissed when it didn't happen and didn't work for them. Right. So I don't place all the blame on the track. I don't place all the blame on the team by any means. There were circumstances on both ends that made it a very difficult situation. And I can understand why they were pissed, because it's like, dude, if the track hadn't told us this, we wouldn't be in the situation. And it's like, yeah, but even if the track had told you this and you weren't in your current situation, you would have still been able to run and have a qualifying run.
Yeah, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. It's to your point, and I'm not the first person to say this, but races are won in the garage, right? So, before you even pull up, to your point, things should be able to turn on and off at the very least. But why do you think Keith kept his foot in it? I mean, he had to have known that he was watering the track. What are your thoughts on that? Was it on purpose? I mean, I'm not accusing anybody. I'm asking your take, because I've heard some stuff from people who were there, and as far as what happened. So I had these questions.
I think there were a couple different factors. So number one, dude, Keith hasn't been behind the wheel of a car in 3 years. We saw last year in season 1, if you know anything about season 1, Dwayne Guttridge hadn't been in a car in 5 years. And guess what? He sucked the first 3 passes he made. He did not know how to drive the freaking car. He left in third. He left in high gear, drove it in high gear all the way down. Like, I can't believe it didn't disintegrate their transmission. I think that was part of it. He hadn't been in the car. He's going into a brand new car that he has no idea about. He's never driven it. So, like, he's automatically, there's going to be a little bit of nervous. There's going to be a little bit of butterflies and just anxiety going into that. And I think that once it spun, with some radio cars, if they spin and you can get out of it quick enough and you can get back in, a properly prepped radio car, like the cars that he's used to driving, you can pedal it and still get into it. And I think that he was trying to do that, and it just was not, like, it was just on the spiciest tune-up he could do. Gio just cranked it all the way up, like, hey, we got to make it pass. And the water thing, that was 100% out of their control. It blew a frost plug out, and it watered the track. And he did not do that on purpose. I would bet money. I would put money on it. I would back Keith up on that.
Well, no. Yeah, I don't want to be misunderstood here. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, he knew that was going to happen beforehand, but I heard from some people who were there that, like, you could hear it. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you could hear it inside the car, but once he knows that it's gushing and you could see it, spray, why stay in it? But to your point, when your nerves are that high, and you've mentally prepared yourself to go from point A to point B, you're not thinking about anything but that. So I can see how it would happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm also going to stick up for Keith real quick, because I've been that guy. I mean, it wasn't frost plugs, but I destroyed the track in front of a friend, and they didn't stop, and he had to run in my crap, and he almost went in the wall, and I felt horrible. And I saw what I felt. I saw that on Keith's face. Like, he didn't do that on purpose. And there was nothing. I mean, he didn't do that. I feel it. Like, I feel it when I see that. I've done that. I was that guy.
Yeah, and not even on purpose, just the fact that being in the car, you got your helmet on the car super loud, you're trying to figure out a brand new car you've never made a pass in. Honestly, I guarantee he didn't know that there was water all over until he's like halfway down the track, and at that point, didn't matter.
Right.
There's water, and luckily, water is the easiest thing to clean up. You just you just blow it off. You just dry it off with jet dryers or torches. So
Yeah.
like, it wasn't a huge deal. But I don't think that he was aware, and by the time he was aware, it didn't matter anyway. That's
Okay.
what I think.
Well, I appreciate your take on that, man.
Good.
Hey, but that brings up another good point. So that's one lane, and it's my understanding that they were like, "Hey, screw it, we'll run in the other lane." But then when they got down there, they weren't letting them run in the other lane, and then that's when the burn down happened.
Yeah, yep. For some reason, and I couldn't tell you the reason. And I was on the starting line, and I don't know the reason to this day. But they didn't want to run in that lane. I don't know it. If my gut feeling tells me something was up with that lane,
Mm.
something was wrong with it. Whether there wasn't rubber, whether it wasn't prepped, whether somebody ripped a bunch of rubber and then dumped oil. I don't know, but that's my inkling feeling. And so yeah, they have to run in that one lane. And like I said, it really comes down. The first bad step was the miscommunication for sure. And the second bad step is not having a car 100% prepared to shut off and turn back on. Because that's you got to have that if you're racing a car. You have to be able to stop it and start it.
That whole situation kills me because I've seen it from both sides. When I'm watching it going down, I'm sitting there, I'm feeling for Lonnie, because I'm just like, oh, I know exactly what happened there, and I'm feeling for Lyle because I know what happened there. I mean, I've sat there and watched no less than a dozen races be lost because someone couldn't fire after the ready line, and it's just because whether they were hot lapping or whatever, that was the most brutal thing to watch because it happens so often. It's not publicized and it's not something you'd ever know unless you experienced it. But that is just a bad situation for everyone involved.
That's rough. So for our viewers, listeners, if you can't tell by now, this finale, this season was chock full of drama and exciting stuff that happened. So again, go check it out, horsepowerwars.com. Brian, season 3 applications are open right now. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yes, you are correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, tell us about that. It's going to be a little bit different for season 3, and I'll let you go into it.
It's going to be a lot different. So we're still in the process of, fine tuning everything because we're making a big change. And if you watch the last episode, if you watch the finale at the very end, it's like next time on $10,000 Drag Shootout, no prep. And we're moving to a no prep kind of deal because it's so popular. There's a lot of people that watch it. There's a lot of betting. There's a lot of back and forth and drama and tension, and we figure like, hey, like we've done that, we've done the $10,000 Drag Shootout in the same form for a couple of years. Like, let's do something that's popular and let's change it up a little bit. Still a budget, still a limited time, and then on top of all of it, and this is my favorite part of season 3, is you got the builds, you got the money, you have the competitions, and then we're taking a 1 day. Right now, it could change, but we're taking a very short break. And then we're going right to a track in California that's not prepped. We're not shipping stuff across country to deal, to get rid of the fire. We're not, we're getting rid of all of that unknown. And we're saying, like, 10 days to build, 1 day break, right to the racetrack. Let's get this crap done. Like, that's what we're doing. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. If you could give some advice to, because the applications are open, where can people apply, Brian? And in your opinion, what's a good way to stand out for these guys if they want to be selected?
Okay, so it's just like anything else we have. Just go to horsepowerwars.com. That is the simplest and easiest way. Everything is there. All the episodes, all the applications, all of the ways, to get everything you need, whether you want to watch or apply. And the number one thing that I would say for these no prep guys, obviously no prep, a lot of times they don't show time. So we're not necessarily looking for ETs. I mean, we definitely want to, hey, like what's the fastest you've been? Like, if you've been 7.0s in the 8th, don't apply. It's like, you're not going to make it. I'm sorry, but I mean, these guys with limited budgets and limited times are going 5s in the 8th, and they're going 8s in the quarter. So, like, you need to have an insane amount of experience, and you need to have a team that is just very cohesive and works together, and you can count on them to build a car in this very limited time and limited budget situation. If you have experience, whether it's on Street Outlaws or any of these other programs, JJ's stuff, definitely any of you guys, I think that you're going to have a step up above 95% of the applicants that we're going to get. So just anybody out there that like, that you have some fast stuff. Maybe you're not the fastest in the world. You know what I mean? Maybe you're not this main guy, but like if you've made like, hey, like we've been 440s in the 8th and we've done it on, a non-prep surface, you should apply like 100%. Like if you've been anything below, I would say 550 on a no prep surface in the 8th, you should probably apply as long as you have a team to back you up. That's what I would say. That's the advice I would give.
Right on, man. So you guys heard it, horsepowerawards.com. Go check it out if you want to apply, if you're part of a team. That's how you stand out. You heard it from the man himself, Brian Petty. Brian, before we jump off here real quick, I know that you, and this is a separate thing, you've been doing a lot of work on that vet that's right behind you with LSX Magazine. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that a little bit. And then, of course, I would love to have you back on again once we're a little bit further, and I'll let you take it away.
Absolutely. So, I've got a couple projects. In the wide view, you can see this Fox body right next to me. That's something that's going on. But the Corvette has been the longer ongoing project. It's a wide body, Grand Sport Z6 Corvette, and working with LSX, working with a lot of really cool companies, for the engine, and work with ProCharger on the supercharger setup. It's a supercharged LSX 376 that we hit up, GM Performance said, hey, like what would you put in a build like this? Very, very efficient motor. I'm very, excited about it. We dynoed it a few weeks back. There will be a video on LSX Magazine, here shortly, so stay tuned for that. It's got to be edited. It's obviously, yeah, you can see it's a very beautiful car. I spent a lot of time on it.
Good Lord.
The supercharger and the fuel system in. Yeah, there's a lot of companies that came together and really, made this car the way that it is. And then, I just did the work, getting the motor and the converter and the transmission from Hughes and all those guys, over there that helped us. It should be pretty cool. We've already posted numbers, so it's not like a real spoiler alert. I will say it made over 700 horsepower to the tire on 13 pounds of boost on.
Yeah, so buddy.
It is not a slouch in any way. And that is a 100% street car. It has every option that it came with: heated seats, climate control, and it actually still has the Zex nitrous system, their perimeter plate on it. I probably will never spray it because the ProCharger makes more power than I can handle right now. But stay tuned. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff on it. We're going to be doing intake runner tests because it's got the fast LSX 102, the LSXR 102 intake, and we're going to be doing a test and I don't know if we're going to do a video. I think we're just doing editorial content, just magazine article stuff. But we're going to test long runner versus mid runner versus short runner on a boosted application because nobody's really done that. And we're going to show the differences those runners make, and then we're also going to swap from factory coils to fast, like high output coils, their ignition coils, and show the difference that just a coil can make in horsepower. And I'm actually going to be on the dyno probably in the next week with that car again.
Very cool.
Testing. We're also going to do an ethanol versus race gas test. Hopefully, fingers crossed. That would be really cool, I think.
You guys can read all about it on lsxmag.com. Brian, what are your plans with that thing? Are you bringing it to LS Fest? Am I going to see you out there again?
LS Fest West?
Yeah.
I have taken the time off of work. Hopefully James will understand. And
I've taken
my time off rather just part-time night thing here that I do just for fun. I have it all planned out. As long as everything stays together, it's been really solid. It's been really good, super reliable, bunch of power, insane to drive on the street, of course. Yes, 90% surety I will be there. Unless something like significant with the car or me happens, I will be there.
Awesome, man. I can't wait to see it out there. So for everything else you got going on, what are your social channels? Where can people follow you and take a look at what you're doing, Brian?
So, you can just follow me. On Facebook, I don't post a ton. I need to get back on there and just post some more about the vet and about the projects I got going. Just Brian Petty, on Facebook. You can find me. Just look for cars and you'll see me. And then I have a YouTube channel I just started up recently. I need to do some more videos for it. I have a lot in the works for that. That's just a power adder videos on YouTube. I got a lot of dyno testing on there. I'm showing the difference between like a boosted combination on ethanol and pump gas, showing how much power and the significant gains you can go, from going from pump gas to ethanol. Showing how much, like simple stuff like, hey, how much does an air filter really restrict a turbo? Because there's a lot of argument about that. I did a dyno test back to back, same day, same car. Hopefully, once we get the Corvette back on there, I'll make my own video about the runners, about the coils, showing the differences. I just started it not that long ago. There's only 6 or 7 videos, but you're welcome to go watch them. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And then just obviously follow Horsepower Wars. That's where you'll see me the most. So
definitely, man. Thank you for those parting shots. Greg, do you have anything?
Not much. It's been an amazing, to work with Brian, because when we did Ellis versus Coyote 2, that was my first time like being exposed to video. I had no idea how much work he puts in. I mean, seriously, like hats off. You put in so much work that nobody ever sees, and it's not an easy job. And yet he makes it look so easy. So I mean, yeah, I just gotta say that, because I mean it was eye-opening for sure, and it was a lot of fun. Like, I'm not gonna deny it was fun, but it was a lot of work too.
Well, thank you, Greg.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Greg. I try and make it as fun as possible. I try and stay, keep my spirits up even when stuff's going wrong, as you saw at firsthand. But yeah,
yeah. Brian, thank you so much, man. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and doing the show and giving us an inside look at a very popular show that a lot of people have questions about. So again, just before we take off, tune in next week, noon Pacific Central Time. Greg and I will be back, and check out horsepowerwars.com, streetmusclemag.com, enginelabs.com, and powerartedmedia.com. Thanks, guys. This has been Vinny Costa, editor, Street Muscle Magazine. Greg Acosta, editor, Engine Labs, and Brian Petty, my good friend and host of Horsepower Wars. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks, guys.